The pregnancy test wasn't mine, but the wolf scent clinging to it was, and now the alpha stood in my bathroom doorway, nostrils flaring with a hunger I couldn't afford to satisfy. Miss Castellano. His voice was smoke and gravel. Want to explain why your bathroom smells like fear and pine needles in October? I'd found the test in the girls' bathroom trash at school, stuffed it in my pocket without thinking, stupid, so stupid, and brought it home. Now Cale Thorne, the new vice principal who'd made my life hell for 3 weeks, was in my apartment. The suppressant pill I dry swallowed an hour ago sat like lead in my stomach, failing. I don't know what you're talking about. I stepped backward. My hip hit the sink. He moved closer. Too close. I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, could smell cedar and something wild that made my blood sing in a way it shouldn't. In a way it hadn't for 18 years. Don't lie to an alpha. He breathed in, deliberate. You're one of us. Question is, why are you pretending not to be? My heart hammered. The tile was cold under my bare feet. I'd kicked off my shoes when I got home, let my guard down for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and my whole careful life was unraveling. I'm human, I said. You're mistaken. Am I? His hand braced against the doorframe, blocking my exit. Not threatening. Just immovable. Because 3 hours ago in the faculty meeting, when Principal Morris announced the budget cuts, your eyes flashed gold. And yesterday, when that kid almost fell down the stairs, you moved faster than any human could. I'd been so careful. 18 years of careful. You're seeing things. And you're a terrible liar. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. How long have you been taking suppressants? The question hit like a physical blow. I must have flinched because something shifted in his expression. Less predator. More concerned. How did you? I can smell them in your sweat. Black market, probably. The kind that burn through your system and take your wolf with them. His jaw tightened. The kind that'll kill you if you're not careful. I wanted to laugh. To scream. To shift and run like I hadn't let myself do since I was 17 years old and covered in my pack's blood. Get out of my apartment. Not until you tell me the truth. He didn't budge. There are rogues in this city. 3 attacks in 2 months. The Silvercrest Pack has jurisdiction here, which means it's my job to find them. And when I pick up the scent of an unregistered wolf, I'm not a rogue. Then what are you? The suppressant chose that moment to fail completely. I felt it like a dam breaking, felt my wolf surge forward after years of forced sleep. My skin prickled. My teeth ached. And God help me, my scent exploded into the small bathroom, pine and rain and something older, something that made Cale's eyes go wide. Moonshadow. He breathed the word like a prayer. Like a curse. Your Moonshadow Pack. I ran. Shoved past him, grabbed my keys from the counter, hit the apartment door at a sprint. But he was alpha, and I was weakened from years of suppressants, and he caught me before I made it to the stairwell. His hand wrapped around my wrist, gentle but unyielding. The Moonshadow Pack is dead, he said quietly. They were slaughtered 18 years ago. Every man, woman, and child. I know. My voice cracked. I was there. His grip loosened. Just enough. How old are you? 35. So you were 17. I met his eyes. Saw him doing the math. Saw understanding dawn. I was 17, and I hid in a crawlspace under the pack house for 6 hours while they murdered everyone I loved. My parents. My little brother. I stopped. Couldn't say the rest. Cale's expression did something complicated. The hard alpha mask cracked, just for a second. Who did it? I don't know. The lie tasted like ash. It was dark. They wore masks. By the time I crawled out, they were gone. Everyone was gone. And you've been running ever since. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. Hiding. Taking poison to keep your wolf down. Living half a life. His thumb brushed the inside of my wrist, right over my racing pulse. That's not surviving, Vera. That's dying slowly. It's staying alive, I snapped. Which is more than the rest of my pack got. Why didn't you go to another pack? Ask for sanctuary? Because sanctuary meant questions. Meant pack bonds that could be traced. Meant someone might figure out what I'd seen in that crawlspace. What I'd heard. The Alpha's true name, spoken in triumph over my father's corpse. I couldn't risk it. Kale studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he released my wrist. The attacks, he said. The rogues. They're not random. Someone's building something. Gathering wolves with no pack ties, no loyalty to the old families. He paused. I think they're connected to what happened to Moonshadow. My blood went cold. That was 18 years ago. And whoever did it got away with it. Got away with murdering an entire pack. His voice was hard. That doesn't sit right with me. Never has. My father was Alpha when it happened. He tried to investigate, but the trail went cold. But now, with these attacks. He looked at me. Really looked. I need your help. No. Vera. I said no. I stepped back. I've stayed hidden this long. I'm not. You're dying. He said it flat. Matter of fact. Those suppressants are killing your wolf. And when your wolf dies, you die with it. You've got maybe a year. 2 if you're lucky. I wanted to argue. Couldn't. So help me find who did this, Kale said. Let me protect you. Let me. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you care? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Something flickered across his face. Something raw. Because 18 years ago, I lost someone too. My sister. She was. He stopped. Swallowed hard. She was engaged to your Pax Beta. Came for a visit the week before the massacre. If she'd stayed one more day, his hands curled into fists. I've spent 18 years wondering who did it. Why? And now I've got a survivor standing in front of me, and I'll be damned if I let you disappear into the night. We stood there, 2 broken people in a narrow hallway, carrying ghosts between us. If I help you, I said slowly, I need something in return. Name it. You can't tell anyone what I am. Not your pack. Not the council. No one. I held his gaze. The second the wrong people know I'm alive, they'll come for you. He nodded. Agreed. This stays between us. And I need real suppressants. The medical grade kind. Done. My pack doctor can. No doctors. No pack members. Just you and me. Kale's jaw worked. I could see him wanting to argue, to insist on proper care, proper protocol. But finally, he nodded. Just us. But Vera, he stepped closer again. If we're doing this, I need the whole truth. Everything you remember from that night. Every detail, no matter how small. I thought about the voice I'd heard. The name spoken in the dark. The name I'd spent 18 years trying to forget. Okay, I whispered. But not here. And not tonight. My voice shook. I need time. Tomorrow. Not a question. My office. After school. Okay. He turned to leave, then stopped. Looked back. For what it's worth, I'm glad you survived. The world's a better place with you in it. Then he was gone, and I was alone in my apartment, my wolf finally awake after years of forced sleep, howling with a grief and rage I'd buried so deep I'd almost forgotten it existed. I slid down the wall. Sat on the floor. Stared at the pregnancy test on the bathroom counter, the one that had started all of this. It wasn't mine. But the fear was. Because tomorrow, I'd have to tell Cale Thorne the truth I'd been running from for 18 years. The Moonshadow Pack wasn't slaughtered by rogues or rival packs. We were destroyed by someone who was supposed to protect us. Someone with power and connections and no mercy for those who got in his way. We were destroyed by an alpha. And if Cale found out which one, it would start a war that would tear the pack world apart. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The morning after Cale Silvercrest discovered her secret, Vera didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every creak of the old apartment building sent her heart racing. Every shadow outside her window looked like a wolf waiting to drag her to justice. She'd packed a bag 3 times and unpacked it twice, her hands shaking as she folded and refolded the same worn sweater. He knew. The Alpha knew what she was, and he hadn't killed her. That was somehow worse than if he had. Vera stood at her kitchen counter as dawn broke, staring at the cold coffee in her chipped mug, when the knock came. Not aggressive. Not the battering ram she'd expected. Just 3 measured raps that somehow conveyed more authority than a shouted command ever could. She opened the door because there was no point in running. Not from him. Cale Silvercrest filled her doorway like a storm barely contained. In the harsh morning light, he looked different than he had in the forest, more human, perhaps, but no less dangerous. He wore dark jeans and a charcoal Henley that did nothing to disguise the predatory grace of his movements as he stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk." His voice was rough, as though he'd slept as poorly as she had. "About which part?" Vera closed the door, leaning against it because her legs suddenly felt unreliable. "The part where you turn me over to the council, or the part where you kill me yourself?" Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe, or respect. "Neither. Yet." "Yet," she repeated, tasting the bitter edge of that word. How reassuring. Cale moved through her small apartment with the same careful attention he'd given the forest, cataloging everything. His gaze lingered on the stack of books by her futon, the herbs drying on her windowsill, the complete absence of anything personal or permanent. A life ready to be abandoned at a moment's notice. "Sit down," he said, and when she didn't move, added, "Please." The please surprised her enough that she obeyed, perching on the edge of her worn armchair while he took the futon across from her. The distance between them felt both too far and not nearly far enough. "I didn't report you last night," he began, his storm-gray eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her want to look away. "She didn't. But I need answers, Vera. Real ones. Starting with who you are and why you've been hiding in my territory for 2 years pretending to be human." "I never pretended to be anything," she said quietly. "I just didn't correct anyone's assumptions." "That's the same thing." "Is it?" She met his gaze steadily. "You assumed I was human because I don't feel like a wolf to you. That's not my fault. That's just what I am." "Which is what, exactly?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Because I've never encountered a shifter who could hide their nature so completely. Not even ancient bloodlines have that kind of control." Vera's hands clenched in her lap. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading for 15 years. The moment someone cared enough to dig deeper than the surface. "My pack was called Moonshadow," she said, and watched his entire body go rigid. "We were small, isolated, hidden in the mountains of West Virginia. And when I was 7 years old, someone slaughtered every wolf in it except me." The silence that followed was suffocating. "Moonshadow." Cale's voice had gone deadly quiet. "The pack Silvercrest was accused of destroying." "Yes. The massacre my father spent 10 years defending our name against. The atrocity that nearly got our entire pack sanctioned by the council." "Yes, Vera whispered. He stood abruptly, pacing to her window with the restless energy of a caged animal. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. My father swore on his life that Silvercrest had nothing to do with that attack. He died still trying to clear our name. And you've been here, in my territory, this whole time? I didn't know, she said quickly, rising to her feet. I was 7, Kale. I didn't know who was blamed or why. I just knew everyone was dead and I had to hide or I'd be next. He spun to face her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw the full weight of his alpha power. It radiated off him in waves, making her wolf cower even as it remained locked away behind whatever walls made her invisible. Tell me everything, he commanded, and it wasn't a request. Now. So she did. The words came haltingly at first, dredged up from the depths where she'd buried them. She told him about the screaming that had woken her that night, about her mother shoving her into a hidden cellar beneath their cabin and casting some kind of spell, because her mother had been special, had practiced old magic most packs had forgotten. She did something to me, Vera said, her voice breaking despite her best efforts. I couldn't shift anymore. Couldn't even feel my wolf properly. She said it was the only way to keep me safe, that they were hunting for something and if they couldn't sense me, I might survive. They? Kale had stopped pacing, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. I don't know who. I heard voices that night, men talking about the bloodline and the experiments and making sure there were no loose ends. My mother made me promise to stay hidden until dawn, no matter what I heard. Vera's throat tightened. I heard her die. I heard all of them die. And I stayed in that cellar like a coward until the sun came up and everything was silent. She turned away, unable to bear the weight of his gaze any longer. When I finally came out, they were all gone. Not just dead, gone. Bodies removed, evidence cleaned up. It was like my pack had never existed. I was 7 years old, alone, and whatever my mother had done made sure no other wolf could sense what I was. So I ran, and I've been running ever since. The silence stretched between them, heavy with 15 years of secrets and lies. I'm sorry. Kale's voice was softer now, the edge of command gone. For what happened to your pack. For what you've had to live through. Vera laughed, but it came out choked. Are you? Or are you just relieved to know Silvercrest didn't actually commit genocide? Both, he admitted. Vera, look at me. She didn't want to, but something in his tone made her turn anyway. He'd moved closer without her noticing, and now stood only a few feet away, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it. If what you're saying is true, if Moonshadow was killed by someone looking for a specific bloodline, investigating magical experiments, then this is bigger than old accusations. This is a conspiracy that someone went to enormous lengths to hide. Which is exactly why I've spent 15 years trying to stay invisible, she said. I'm not brave like you, Kale. I'm not strong enough to fight back. I just want to survive. You've been surviving in hostile territory for 2 years, he pointed out. That takes a different kind of strength. Or desperation. Maybe. His eyes searched hers. But if we're going to figure out what really happened to your pack. We? The words stopped her cold. There is no we. You should forget you ever saw me in those woods. Forget I told you any of this. Just, let me disappear again. It's what I'm good at. Not happening. The alpha command was back in his voice. Someone destroyed your pack and let mine take the blame. Someone created whatever you are, whatever was done to you. That affects both of us now. No, Vera said firmly, even as fear wrapped cold fingers around her heart. I am not getting involved in pack politics. I'm not investigating anything. That's how people end up dead, and I've already lost everyone I loved once. You're already involved. Kale closed the remaining distance between them, and she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. This close, she could smell pine and rain and something uniquely him that made her hidden wolf stir uneasily. The moment you stepped into Silvercrest territory, you became my responsibility. And I don't leave mysteries unsolved, especially ones that involve my father's legacy. This isn't about your father's legacy, she said desperately. This is about my life. My survival. Then help me understand. His hand came up, and for a heart-stopping moment she thought he might touch her face, but he stopped himself. Show me you're not a threat to my pack. Help me find out who really killed Moonshadow. And maybe, just maybe, we can both get the answers we need. Vera wanted to refuse. Every instinct she had screamed at her to run, to disappear into the wind like she'd done a dozen times before. But something about the way Cale looked at her, the carefully controlled desperation in his eyes, made her hesitate. If I do this, she said slowly, and we find something, what happens to me then? I don't know, he admitted, and she appreciated the honesty even as it terrified her. But I give you my word as Alpha that I won't let anyone hurt you without going through me first. It wasn't a promise of safety. It was barely a promise at all. But it was more than anyone had offered her in 15 years. Okay, she whispered, and watched something like relief cross his face. Where do we start? The Silvercrest archives were not what Vera expected. Instead of some dusty basement or ancient library, Cale led her to a modern office building on the edge of his territory, where pack records had been meticulously digitized and cross-referenced. His beta, Marcus, the sandy-haired man she vaguely recognized from around town, raised an eyebrow when they entered together but said nothing. We need everything we have on the Moonshadow incident, Cale told him without preamble. Including the council investigation records and my father's defense documentation. Marcus's other eyebrow joined the first. That's sealed, Alpha. Your father's orders were. I know what his orders were. I'm overriding them. Might I ask why? Cale glanced at Vera, and she saw the calculation in his eyes. How much to reveal, how much to trust. New evidence has come to light. That's all you need to know right now. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but pack hierarchy won out. I'll have everything compiled within the hour. Make it half that. When they were alone in Cale's private office, a space of clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the forest, Vera finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind since they left her apartment. Why are you really doing this? Cale was pouring coffee from an expensive-looking machine, and he paused mid-pour. I told you. Someone needs to. No. She moved closer, emboldened by the fact that she'd already exposed every vulnerability she had. What was one more? You're Alpha. You have a whole pack to run, responsibilities I can't even imagine. But you're dropping everything to investigate a 15-year-old massacre based on the word of a rogue wolf you just met. That's not about duty or justice. So what is it really about? He finished pouring the coffee, handed her a mug she didn't remember asking for, and leaned against his desk. In the morning light, the exhaustion on his face was more apparent, shadows under his eyes, tension in his jaw. My father died 6 months ago, he said quietly. Heart attack, sudden and brutal. His last words to me were, clear our name. He never got over Moonshadow, never stopped believing someone had framed us. And I didn't believe him. I thought he was paranoid, obsessed with something that didn't matter anymore. Vera's chest tightened with unexpected sympathy. Then you show up in my forest, a survivor of the pack we were accused of destroying, with a story that suggests my father was right all along. Cale met her eyes, and she saw the raw grief there. So yes, this is about duty and justice. But it's also about proving my father wasn't crazy. That his obsession meant something. That I should have listened. I'm sorry, Vera said, meaning it. About your father. Don't be sorry. Just help me find the truth. Before she could respond, the office door burst open with enough force to make them both jump. A woman swept in like a force of nature, tall, elegant, with platinum hair styled in perfect waves and eyes the color of amber that immediately fixed on Vera with predatory interest. Cale, darling. Her voice was honey poured over steel. I've been calling you all morning. Imagine my surprise when Marcus told me you were too busy to. She stopped, her gaze sharpening on Vera. Who is this? Cale straightened, and Vera didn't miss the way his entire demeanor shifted, became more formal, more distant. Sienna. I wasn't expecting you until next week. I decided to arrive early. Sienna moved into the room with the confidence of someone who belonged there, and Vera suddenly felt very aware of her thrift store jeans and faded flannel. Clearly that was wise, given you're entertaining human strays in your office instead of preparing for the convergence. The dismissive way she said human made Vera's hidden wolf snarl, but she kept her expression neutral. Vera isn't a stray, Cale said, his voice carefully even. She's helping me with pack business. Pack business. Sienna's laugh was like cut glass. How intriguing. And what could a human possibly help the great Silvercrest pack with? The casual cruelty in her tone sparked something dangerous in Vera's chest. She'd spent 15 years being dismissed, overlooked, treated as less than. But she'd also survived things that would break most wolves, and she was done apologizing for it. Research, Vera said coolly, meeting Sienna's amber gaze without flinching. Though I wouldn't expect you to understand the concept. That would require intellectual curiosity. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Sienna went very still, her wolf rising so close to the surface that Vera could practically see it prowling beneath her skin. Careful, little human. You have no idea who you're speaking to. Actually, Cale interjected, moving between them with the fluid grace of an alpha asserting dominance. Sienna, this is Vera Thorne. Vera, this is Sienna Blackwood of the Nightshade Pack. My fiancée. The word hit Vera like a physical blow, though she had no right to feel the sharp twist of something that absolutely was not jealousy. Fiancé, she repeated, keeping her voice admirably steady. Congratulations. Thank you. Sienna's smile was all teeth as she moved to Cale's side, one manicured hand resting possessively on his arm. The convergence is in 3 weeks, a formal announcement of our union and the alliance between Silvercrest and Nightshade. It's been arranged since we were children, really. Destiny. Destiny, Vera echoed, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. Cale's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he didn't contradict her. Now then. Sienna's attention returned to Vera with renewed interest. Since you're clearly here on important pack business, perhaps you should run along and let me discuss actual pack matters with my future mate. Unless, of course, your research is more important than his obligations to our people? It was a masterful dismissal, polite enough that arguing would make Vera look petty, cutting enough that everyone in the room knew exactly what was being said. Vera straightened her spine, channeling every ounce of dignity her mother had died to protect. Actually, I think I'll stay. Unless the Alpha asks me to leave? She looked at Cale, challenging him to choose. For a long moment, he said nothing. The tension between the three of them was thick enough to choke on. Sienna's expression promised future retribution, while something complicated flickered across Cale's face, respect and frustration and something else she couldn't name. Vera stays, he said finally, and Sienna's grip on his arm tightened. This concerns Silvercrest history, and she has relevant information. I see. Sienna's smile never wavered, but her eyes had gone cold. How modern of you, darling. Including humans in pack affairs. I'm sure the council will find that fascinating. The implied threat hung in the air like smoke. Marcus chose that moment to return, his arms full of file boxes and his expression carefully neutral in the way of someone who'd walked into a situation he wanted no part of. The Moonshadow files, Alpha, he said, setting them on the desk with a heavy thud. Everything we have. Sienna's carefully cultivated composure cracked for just an instant. Moonshadow? Cale, why are you dredging up that old nightmare? Because it was never properly resolved, Cale said, his attention already shifting to the files. And new evidence suggests the investigation was incomplete. New evidence? Sienna's gaze snapped to Vera with sudden, sharp intelligence. What kind of evidence? Vera kept her expression blank, but her heart hammered against her ribs. There was something in the way Sienna looked at her now, not with dismissal or disdain, but with calculation. Recognition, almost. The kind that requires discretion, Cale said firmly. Which is why this conversation is staying between us. Of course, darling. Sienna's mask of pleasant cooperation slid back into place. Though I do hope this little project won't interfere with your duties. The convergence requires your full attention, and there are alliances to consider. Decisions that will affect both our packs for generations. I'm aware of my responsibilities. Are you? Something dangerous flashed in Sienna's eyes. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're chasing ghosts with a human girl instead of focusing on your future. Our future. The emphasis on our was deliberate, possessive. Vera wanted to look away from the intimate tension between them, but she found herself frozen, watching this glimpse into a life Cale lived that had nothing to do with her. I can handle both, Cale said, his voice dropping into that alpha tone that brooked no argument. Trust me. I always do, darling. Sienna rose on her toes to press a kiss to his cheek, her eyes locked on Vera the entire time in a clear territorial display. Just remember who's waiting for you when you're done playing detective. She swept out of the office with the same dramatic flair she'd entered with, leaving a wake of expensive perfume and unspoken threats. The silence she left behind was deafening. So, Vera said finally, proud of how steady her voice was. Fiancé. That's great. Really great. Cale scrubbed a hand over his face, suddenly looking more exhausted than ever. It's complicated. It seems pretty straightforward to me. She moved toward the door, needing distance, needing air. Arranged marriage, pack alliance, destiny. All very romantic. Vera. No, it's fine. Really. She forced what she hoped was a casual smile. This doesn't change anything about our investigation. I'll help you find answers about Moonshadow, you'll clear your father's name, and then I'll disappear again. Just like we planned. That's not what I want. The words stopped her with her hand on the doorknob. What you want doesn't matter, she said quietly, not turning around because she couldn't bear to see whatever expression was on his face. You're alpha. You have responsibilities, a fiancé, a whole life that was set in stone long before I stumbled into your forest. So let's just focus on what we came here to do and leave everything else alone. Chapter 3. Vera made it 3 days before her body started betraying her. She'd been taking the suppressants since she was 7, a cocktail of herbs and compounds her mother had mixed in those final desperate hours, the recipe memorized and repeated so many times it had become ritual. Every morning, the same bitter tea. Every night, the same pill she ordered from a witch in Oregon who asked no questions as long as the money came on time. 18 years of chemical warfare against her own nature. 18 years, and now her body had decided enough was enough. The first sign was the fever. It hit on Tuesday afternoon while she was teaching her juniors about Hemingway's iceberg theory, and suddenly the room was spinning, her skin too tight, her wolf clawing at the walls of its cage with a desperation that made her gasp. Miss Thorne? Jenny Martinez, front row, perpetual A student, looked concerned. Are you okay? Fine, Vera managed, gripping the edge of her desk hard enough that her knuckles went white. Just, everyone read chapters 5 through 7. Quiz Friday. She barely made it to her car before the shaking started. By the time she reached her apartment, her vision was blurring at the edges, her muscles cramping with the effort of keeping her shift contained. She fumbled with her keys, dropped them twice, and finally got the door open just as another wave of heat crashed through her body. The suppressants sat on her bathroom counter, mocking her with their uselessness. She'd doubled the dose this morning, tripled it at lunch. Her mother's recipe wasn't made for 18 years of continuous use. It was meant to be temporary, a few months, maybe a year while a young wolf learned proper control. But Vera had never learned control. She'd learned suppression, denial, erasure. And now the bill was coming due. She collapsed on her bathroom floor, tile cool against her burning cheek, and felt her wolf rising with the inevitability of a tide. For 18 years, she'd kept it locked away, barely a whisper in the back of her mind. Now it surged forward with primal fury, demanding recognition, demanding freedom. Her bones began to shift. The pain was indescribable, not the clean transformation she vaguely remembered from childhood, but something twisted and wrong. Her body tried to change and couldn't, the suppressants still in her system fighting against nature itself. She was caught between forms, trapped in an agonizing liminal space that made her scream into the tile. Through the haze of pain, she heard pounding on her door. Vera. Cale's voice, sharp with command and concern. Open this door. Now. She couldn't. Could barely breathe, let alone move. Her fingers had started to elongate into claws, then snapped back to human, then started again. The transformation was eating her alive from the inside out. The door crashed open, splintered wood and broken locks that her security deposit would never cover. Then Cale was there, dropping to his knees beside her, his hands hovering over her body like he didn't know where to touch without causing more damage. Jesus Christ, he breathed. How long have you been taking suppressants? Since, she gasped as another wave of transformation rolled through her. Since I was 7. 7? Vera, he cut himself off, his jaw clenching. Okay. Okay, we need to let your wolf out. You're fighting it, and that's what's killing you. Can't. The word came out half human, half growl. If I shift, if anyone senses. I'm already here. I already know what you are. His hands settled on her shoulders, firm and grounding. And right now, your wolf isn't the danger. The suppressants are. Your body is rejecting them, and if you don't shift, the conflict is going to tear you apart. I don't. Another scream ripped from her throat as her spine tried to realign. I don't remember how. Something complicated crossed Cale's face. Pain and understanding and a determination that scared her almost as much as her own failing body. Then I'll help you, he said quietly. But Vera, you need to trust me. Can you do that? She wanted to say no. Trust was the thing that got you killed, the lesson she'd learned watching her mother die. But she was dying anyway, slowly and in agony, and Cale's hands on her shoulders were the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. Okay, she whispered. Good. He shifted behind her, his chest against her back, arms wrapping around her waist in a hold that was both gentle and unbreakable. Close your eyes. Stop fighting. Just, let go. I can't. Yes, you can. His voice dropped lower, taking on that alpha resonance that vibrated through her bones. I've got you. Your wolf wants out, so stop holding the door closed. Let it through. It went against every instinct she'd developed, every survival mechanism she'd built. But her body was destroying itself, and Cale's warmth at her back was the only solid thing in a world gone liquid with pain. Vera closed her eyes and stopped fighting. The change that rolled through her was nothing like the aborted attempts of the past few hours. This was pure and clean and right, bones shifting like water, muscles reforming, skin erupting with fur the color of storm clouds. Cale's arms stayed around her through all of it, his presence somehow guiding her wolf through a transformation it had nearly forgotten. When it was done, Vera stood on 4 legs for the first time in 18 years. She was smaller than she should be, her wolf stunted by years of suppression, more like a yearling than a full-grown female. But she was whole in a way she'd forgotten existed. Every sense was sharper, every emotion more vivid. She could smell the pine and rain scent of Cale's wolf, could hear his heartbeat strong and steady behind her, could feel the way his presence called to something deep and primal in her chest. There you are, Cale murmured, and she felt his hand stroke down her back, through fur that was probably matted and ugly but felt like silk under his touch. Gods, Vera. You're beautiful. She wanted to disagree. Her wolf was too small, too weak, marked by years of abuse. But the wonder in his voice made something in her chest squeeze tight. Shift back, she tried to tell him, but it came out as a whine. She didn't know how to reverse the change, didn't remember the path back to human. Easy, Kale soothed, still touching her like she was something precious. You need to hold this form for a bit. Let your body remember what it's like. Then I'll help you back. So Vera stood in her too small apartment on 4 legs that trembled with exhaustion, leaning against an alpha who should have been her enemy, and tried to remember what it felt like to be whole. That's when the bonds snapped into place. It wasn't gradual. Wasn't a slow building of awareness. One moment she was simply a wolf being comforted by an alpha, and the next. Everything. Kale's emotions flooded through her like a dam breaking, his concern and protectiveness and a fierce, desperate need to keep her safe that had nothing to do with duty and everything to do with something raw and undeniable. She felt his wolf recognize hers, felt the way it reached out and claimed her with a possessiveness that should have terrified her. And underneath it all, she felt the mate bond click into place like a key in a lock, binding them together in a way that transcended pack law or logic or any choice either of them had made. No, she thought desperately. No, no, no. Kale sucked in a sharp breath behind her, his hands tightening on her fur. Vera? She bolted. It was instinct, blind panic that sent her scrambling across the apartment on legs that barely held her weight. She made it 3 steps before her wolf gave out, exhausted and broken, and she collapsed in a tangle of limbs that were trying desperately to be human again. The shift back was agony, her body not ready, not healed, but driven by sheer terror. She ended up naked and shaking on her living room floor, arms wrapped around herself, while Kale watched from across the room with eyes that had gone completely wolf. You felt it, he said, his voice rough. Not a question. I don't know what you're talking about. But her hands were shaking too hard to be convincing, and they both knew she was lying. Vera. He moved toward her slowly, like she was a spooked animal. Which, she supposed, she was. The mate bond. You felt it too. That's not, she shook her head violently. That's not possible. Mate bonds don't just happen. They're rare and they take time and they certainly don't snap into place between an alpha and a... And a what? He asked quietly. A survivor? A wolf who's been hiding for 18 years? Someone who's strong enough to live in hostile territory and brave enough to stand up to my fiancé? Someone who's nobody, Vera said desperately. I'm nobody, Kale. I'm a rogue with no pack, no family, no place in your world. Mate bonds happen between equals, and we are so far from equal it's not even. Do you think I give a damn about that? The words came out harsh, his control fracturing. Do you think my wolf cares about pack politics or social standing when it's screaming at me that you're mine? The possessiveness in that last word sent heat flooding through her traitorous body. You have a fiancé, she said, grasping for any argument that might build walls between them. An arranged marriage, an alliance, a destiny. Remember? Something like pain flashed across his face. I remember. Then you know this, she gestured between them. Whatever this is, it doesn't matter. It can't matter. Because you have responsibilities and I have survival instincts, and neither of those things includes destroying your life for a bond that shouldn't exist. Vera. A sharp knock on her destroyed door frame cut him off. They both froze as Sienna's voice drifted through the apartment, honey-sweet and poisonous. Kale, darling. Marcus said you rushed off in quite a hurry. I thought I'd check. She appeared in the doorway and stopped dead, her amber eyes taking in the scene with a predator's precision. Vera, naked and vulnerable on the floor. Kale, standing over her with eyes still more wolf than man. The intimacy of it, unmistakable. The temperature in the room dropped to sub-zero. Well, Sienna said softly. Isn't this cozy? Vera lunged for the blanket draped over her futon, wrapping it around herself with shaking hands. Kale stepped between them immediately, his body language pure alpha protection, and Vera saw the exact moment Sienna registered that instinctive defense. It's not what you think, Kale said, his voice carefully controlled. No? Sienna's smile was razor-sharp. Because it looks like you're in your pet human's apartment, alone, while she's naked and clearly in distress. What exactly should I think, darling? Vera was sick. I was helping. How very hands-on of you. Sienna moved into the room with lethal grace, circling them like a shark scenting blood. You know, I've been curious about your little research assistant. Marcus has been remarkably tight-lipped about what exactly you're investigating. But now I'm wondering if this has less to do with Moonshadow and more to do with something far more inappropriate. Sienna. The warning in Kale's voice was unmistakable. That's enough. Is it? She stopped circling, her full attention fixed on Vera with an intensity that made her hidden wolf cower. Tell me, Miss Thorne. What were you really doing collapsed on your floor? What kind of illness requires the Alpha's personal intervention? Vera's heart hammered against her ribs. Sienna couldn't know, couldn't possibly sense what she was. But there was something in those amber eyes that suggested she suspected anyway. Migraine, Vera said, lifting her chin despite her disadvantage. I get them sometimes. Debilitating. Kale was kind enough to check on me. How fortunate that he arrived just in time. Sienna's gaze dropped to the scattered pills on Vera's bathroom counter, visible through the open door. What interesting medication you take. Almost like suppressants, wouldn't you say? The world stopped spinning. I don't know what you mean, Vera said, but her voice came out too thin, too desperate. Don't you? Sienna picked up one of the pills, examining it with clinical interest. My father used to fund research on shifter biology. He was particularly interested in bloodline suppression, how to hide a wolf's nature from detection. The formula was quite unique. And very, very illegal. Kale had gone very still beside her, that dangerous stillness that preceded violence. What are you implying, Sienna? I'm not implying anything, darling. She set the pill down with delicate precision. I'm stating facts. Your research assistant is taking illegal suppressants. Which means she's either a wolf in hiding, which would make her presence in your territory a serious crime, or she's involved in something that violates about 6 council regulations. Either way, I'm sure the council would be fascinated to learn about her. You're reaching, Kale said, but Vera heard the tension in his voice. Those could be anything. Could be. But we both know they're not. Sienna's smile widened. Here's what's going to happen. Miss Thorne is going to pack her sad little bags and leave Silvercrest territory by dawn tomorrow. And you, my darling fiancé, are going to forget she ever existed. Otherwise. She pulled out her phone, the threat clear. One call to my father, and the council will tear this town apart looking for whatever she's hiding. I wonder how many innocent wolves would get hurt in the process. The casual cruelty of it, the willingness to destroy lives to maintain control, made Vera's wolf snarl with helpless rage. You can't, Kale started, but Sienna cut him off. I can, and I will. Unless you'd like to explain to the council why you've been harboring a rogue in direct violation of pack law. Why you've been investigating sealed files without authorization. Why you're standing in her apartment looking like you want to rip my throat out for threatening her. Each word was a precision strike, and they all hit their marks. 48 hours, Sienna continued, turning toward the door. And Kale? If I find out you've been helping her, if I discover you've formed any kind of attachment, the consequences will be severe. For both of you. The convergence is in 3 weeks, and nothing, not old murders, not pretty distractions, nothing, will interfere with our alliance. Am I clear? Crystal, Kale ground out. Sienna paused in the doorway, glancing back with false concern. Oh, and Miss Thorne? I'd be careful at that school of yours. Teenagers can be so unpredictable. It would be a shame if something happened to them because someone failed to maintain proper security. The threat hung in the air long after she left, poison that seeped into every corner of the room. Vera sat down hard on her futon, the blanket clutched around her like armor that did nothing to protect her. I have to leave. No. Kale was pacing now, all that restrained energy seeking an outlet. We're not letting her win. We'll figure something out. There's nothing to figure out. Vera's voice cracked. She's right. I'm breaking about a dozen pack laws just by existing here. If the council investigates, they'll find everything. What I am, what was done to my pack, the experiments. And people will get hurt. Your people. So we expose her father first. We take the council files we found and what? Create a war between packs? Destroy the alliance your family needs? Vera shook her head, exhaustion pulling at her bones. I told you from the beginning that I'm not worth that kind of trouble. I should have left the moment you found me in those woods. Don't. He stopped pacing, kneeling in front of her so they were eye to eye. Don't you dare regret this. Whatever else happens, we found the truth about Moonshadow. We know my father was right. That matters. Does it? She asked bitterly. Your father is still dead. My pack is still slaughtered. And knowing the truth doesn't change anything except now more people are in danger because I was selfish enough to stay. You're not selfish. He stopped, jaw clenching as he fought for words. The mate bond. Doesn't matter, she finished firmly, even though saying it felt like ripping out her own heart. You have duties, a betrothed, a pack that needs you whole and focused. And I have 48 hours to disappear. That's how this ends. Vera. Her phone buzzed on the floor between them, the sound obscenely loud in the heavy silence. She picked it up with numb fingers, expecting another threat from Sienna. Instead, it was a text from Principal Morrison. Emergency. 3 students attacked near the school. Get here now. The blood drained from her face. What is it? Cale demanded. She showed him the phone with shaking hands, Sienna's parting threat echoing in her mind. I'd be careful at that school of yours. Teenagers can be so unpredictable. Oh God, Vera breathed. She wouldn't. Even she wouldn't. But they both knew she would. They made it to the school in 7 minutes, Cale driving with the focused intensity of an alpha-scenting threat. The parking lot was chaos, ambulances, police cars, and a crowd of terrified students being held back by yellow tape. Principal Morrison met them at the entrance, his usually calm face pale and drawn. Vera. Thank God. The students, they were attacked in the parking lot. Animal attack, the police think. A wolf. Are they? Vera couldn't finish the question. Alive. Badly injured, but alive. Tommy Chen, Sarah Alvarez, and Mark Peterson. They were staying late for drama rehearsal. 3 of her students. 3 kids under her protection. What happened exactly? Cale asked, his alpha authority making Morrison snap to attention despite being human. They said a wolf came out of the woods. Huge, they said. Gray and black. It attacked Tommy first, then the others when they tried to help. Morrison ran a hand through his hair. But here's the thing, the wolf didn't kill them. It was almost like it was hurting them, keeping them in place. And then it just left. Like it had made its point. Vera's stomach turned to ice. Did anyone see where it went? Cale's voice was carefully neutral, but she felt tension radiating off him in waves. Into the woods. But Morrison hesitated, then pulled something from his pocket wrapped in a plastic evidence bag. They found this near the scene. Said it must have fallen during the attack. It was a small silver charm on a leather cord. A wolf's head howling at the moon, distinctive and unmistakable. Vera's charm. The one her mother had given her the night she died, the one Vera wore every single day hidden under her shirts. Except she was wearing it right now. Someone had planted an exact replica at a crime scene to frame her for attacking her own students. She started, but Cale's hand on her arm stopped her. Where are the police now? He asked Morrison. Talking to witnesses. Taking statements. They'll want to speak with all the teachers who were here today. Morrison looked at Vera with concern. Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. The lie tasted like ash. Can I see the students? They're at County General. But Vera, the police specifically asked where you were tonight. Someone told them you had a relationship with all 3 victims. That you'd been acting strangely lately. The trap closed around her with the precision of a steel jaw. Cale's phone rang. He stepped away to answer it, but Vera could see his expression darkening with each passing second. When he returned, his eyes had gone completely wolf. That was Marcus, he said quietly, for her ears only. Someone called in an anonymous tip to the council. Said there's a rogue wolf operating in Silvercrest territory. They're sending investigators. How long? 24 hours. Maybe less. So this was how it ended. Not with her running in the night like she'd planned, but publicly accused, investigated, exposed. Everything she'd feared for 18 years, orchestrated by a woman who saw her as nothing more than an obstacle to be eliminated. I'm being framed, Vera said, keeping her voice low. That charm, I'm wearing mine right now. Someone made a copy. I know. Cale's jaw was so tight she worried his teeth would crack. Sienna. You can't prove that. Not yet. But Vera, listen to me, he grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. You need to come with me right now. Before the police start asking questions you can't answer. Before the council investigators arrive and start digging into your background. Come with you where? Silvercrest headquarters. Protective custody. Vera jerked back like he'd slapped her. That's a prison sentence and you know it. The moment I step foot on official PAC territory, the council has jurisdiction. They can hold me indefinitely, investigate me, expose everything I am. Or I can protect you. The desperation in his voice cut through her panic. As Alpha, I have the right to detain threats to my PAC for investigation. If I bring you involuntarily, it looks like I'm taking the situation seriously. If I don't, and the council finds you first, you lose any protection I can offer. Some protection, she said bitterly. Detained by an Alpha who's mated to me but engaged to the woman trying to destroy me. That's bound to go well. Pain flashed across his face. I know this isn't fair. I know you trusted me and I've failed to keep you safe. But right now, this is the only option that doesn't end with you dead or disappeared by council enforcers. Please, Vera. Let me do this one thing right. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to run, to disappear like she'd done so many times before. But she was tired, so bone-deep tired of running, of hiding, of surviving alone. And despite everything, despite the impossible situation and the mate bond they couldn't acknowledge and the fiancé who wanted her dead, she trusted him. Okay, she whispered. But Cale, when they find out what I am, when the council comes for answers. I'll handle it. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll try. He pulled out his phone, already dialing Marcus. And that I won't let them take you without a fight. The ride to Silvercrest headquarters felt like a death march. Vera sat in the passenger seat of Cale's truck, watching the town she'd tried to build a life in slip past the windows. Tomorrow, everyone would know. The teachers who'd welcomed her, the students who trusted her, the few friends she'd cautiously made, they'd all learned she was a fraud. A wolf in hiding. A suspect in a brutal attack. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. Marcus was waiting when they arrived, his expression grim. The council called. They're arriving tomorrow morning, first thing. They want a full report on the rogue situation and access to any suspects. Then they'll get their report, Cale said, his Alpha voice firmly in place. Take Vera to the holding cells. Make her comfortable. The holding cells? Marcus looked between them with clear concern. Cale, are you sure about this? If the council thinks. I know what they'll think. Do it anyway. Vera followed Marcus down a sterile hallway, her footsteps echoing on polished concrete. The holding cell was actually a small but comfortable room, a bed, a chair, a tiny attached bathroom. Better than many apartments she'd lived in, which somehow made it worse. I'll bring you food, Marcus said quietly. And Vera? For what it's worth, I don't think you attacked those kids. Cale doesn't either. What you think doesn't matter, she said tiredly. Only what the evidence says. And someone's made very sure the evidence points at me. He left her alone with a promise to return within the hour. Vera sat on the edge of the bed, her mother's charms still warm against her throat, and tried not to think about the fact that somewhere in this building, Cale was probably meeting with Sienna. Explaining why he detained his research assistant. Maintaining the careful fiction that would preserve his alliance and condemn Vera to whatever came next. The mate bond hummed between them, a constant reminder of what they couldn't have. She could feel his frustration, his rage, his desperate need to fix this. But she could also feel his resignation, the alpha who understood duty, who knew that sometimes the right choice meant sacrificing what you wanted most. I'm sorry, she thought, sending the words down the bond without knowing if he could even hear them. I'm sorry I brought this into your life. His response came back immediately, fierce and possessive and achingly tender. Never apologize for existing. Not to me. Not to anyone. Vera closed her eyes against the tears that threatened, one hand pressed to her chest where the bond pulsed like a second heartbeat. Tomorrow, the council would come. They'd investigate, discover, expose everything she'd spent 18 years hiding. But tonight, just for tonight, she let herself feel the connection to an alpha who should have been her enemy and had somehow become something far more dangerous. Her mate. Her doom. Her only remaining hope. Outside her cell, she heard footsteps approaching. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Through the small window in her door, she glimpsed council investigators arriving early. A full day ahead of schedule, summoned by someone who wanted this resolved quickly and quietly. The trap was closing. And somewhere in Silvercrest headquarters, an alpha paced his office and wondered how to save a mate he couldn't claim from a council that wouldn't understand, while his fiancée smiled in the shadows and planned her next move. The game was just beginning. And Vera had a terrible feeling that before it ended, someone would die. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The council investigators arrived at dawn, and they brought Winter with them. Vera felt them before she saw them, a cold pressure in the air that made her damaged wolf whimper and retreat deeper into hiding. Through the small window of her cell, she watched 3 figures emerge from a black SUV, moving with the synchronized precision of predators who'd hunted together for centuries. The leader was a woman who looked barely 30 but carried herself with the weight of multiple lifetimes. Silver hair cut sharp as a blade, eyes the color of frozen mercury, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Vera had earned in the past year. Behind her came 2 enforcers, massive wolves barely contained in human skin, their gazes sweeping the parking lot for threats. Vera's hands trembled as she backed away from the window. This was it. The moment she'd been running from since she was 7 years old. I'm not ready, she thought desperately down the mate bond, not sure if Cale could even hear her. His response came back immediately, fierce and protective. I've got you. No matter what happens, I've got you. But they both knew that was a lie. When the council demanded answers, even an alpha's protection had limits. The door to her cell opened. Not Marcus this time, but a wolf she didn't recognize, young, nervous, avoiding eye contact as he gestured for her to follow. Vera's legs felt like water as she stepped into the hallway, every instinct screaming at her to run even though there was nowhere left to go. They led her to a conference room that smelled of old wood and older secrets. Cale stood by the window, his posture rigid with barely controlled tension. The silver-haired investigator sat at the head of the table, examining Vera with clinical interest that made her skin crawl. Vera Thorne. The woman's voice was silk over steel. I'm Magistrate Alara Coldwater, Council Investigator. These are Enforcers Thorne and Ash. She gestured to the 2 massive wolves flanking the door. I understand you're being held regarding a series of attacks on human students. I didn't attack anyone, Vera said, lifting her chin despite her terror. I'm being framed. So Alpha Silvercrest claims. Coldwater's mercury eyes flicked to Kale. Though his reasoning for detaining you rather than calling us immediately is interesting. Care to explain, Alpha? Kale's jaw tightened. Miss Thorne was cooperative and came voluntarily. I saw no reason to escalate before gathering facts. Facts. Coldwater smiled, but it held no warmth. How convenient that gathering facts required imprisoning her in your private facilities rather than alerting council authorities. One might think you were trying to hide something. One might think the council is looking for excuses to overstep their authority, Kale countered, his alpha power filling the room. I'm well within my rights to investigate threats to my pack before involving external parties. The power play was fascinating and terrifying to watch. Two apex predators circling each other, testing boundaries, looking for weakness. Very well. Coldwater turned her attention back to Vera. Let's discuss these attacks. 3 students, all of whom you taught, were mauled by what witnesses describe as a large gray wolf. This charm was found at the scene. She produced the evidence bag with the replica of Vera's necklace. Do you recognize it? It looks like mine, Vera admitted, pulling out the real charm from beneath her shirt. But I'm wearing mine. Someone made a copy. How convenient. And can anyone verify your whereabouts during the attack? Vera's mouth went dry. She'd been collapsed on her bathroom floor, shifting for the first time in 18 years, held in Kale's arms as a mate bond formed between them. All things she absolutely could not say. I was home, she said carefully. Sick with a migraine. Alone? The silence stretched too long. Vera saw Kale shift slightly, preparing to lie for her, to compromise himself further. She couldn't let him do it. Yes, she said. Alone. Coldwater's smile widened. I see. And these migraines, do they happen often? Sometimes. How do you treat them? Trap. Every question was a trap, leading her closer to exposure. Medication. Herbal remedies. Such as? Coldwater pulled out another evidence bag, this one containing Vera's suppressants. Like these pills that were found in your apartment? The ones that matched the chemical signature of illegal shifter suppressants? The room exploded into motion. Kale surged forward, his alpha dominance flooding the space. You searched her apartment without a warrant? We had probable cause. Coldwater remained perfectly calm despite the waves of threatening power rolling off Kale. Anonymous tip about a rogue wolf, evidence of an attack, a suspect with no verifiable background. More than enough for council jurisdiction. And now we have confirmation that Miss Thorne has been using illegal suppressants. The question is, why would a human need medication designed to hide a wolf's nature? Vera's world tilted sideways. This was it. The exposure she'd feared, happening in slow motion, unstoppable as a landslide. Unless, Coldwater continued, Miss Thorne isn't human at all. Unless she's a rogue wolf who's been hiding in Silvercrest territory for years, possibly with the Alpha's knowledge. Which would make this situation far more serious than a simple attack investigation. That's ridiculous, Kale said, but Vera heard the desperation beneath his authority. You're reaching. Am I? Then Miss Thorne won't mind submitting to a council examination. A simple blood test will settle the matter. Coldwater stood, gesturing to the enforcers. Unless, of course, there's something she'd like to confess first. Vera's wolf thrashed against its cage, panic making it stronger than it had been in years. A blood test would reveal everything, what she was, her Moonshadow bloodline, possibly even traces of the experiments. And once the council knew, once they started digging into her past. Wait. The word came from the doorway. An old man stood there, ancient, actually, his face a map of wrinkles and his eyes holding the weight of centuries. He wore simple clothes and leaned on a gnarled walking stick, but power radiated off him in waves that made even the council investigators pause. Elder Tobias, Kale breathed, shock clear in his voice. I didn't know you were still in the territory. I go where I'm needed, young Alpha. The old wolf's gaze fixed on Vera with an intensity that made her want to squirm. And I believe I'm needed here. The council's investigation can wait. This child and I need to speak. Alone. Absolutely not, Coldwater said sharply. This is council business. This is pack business, Tobias interrupted, his voice gaining strength. Ancient business that predates your council by millennia. You will wait, magistrate, or you will explain to the elders' conclave why you interfered with matters of bloodline and legacy. The threat hung in the air. Vera had no idea what the elders' conclave was, but clearly Coldwater did. Her expression went carefully neutral. 1 hour, she said coldly. Then we proceed with or without your blessing. Tobias inclined his head in acceptance, then turned to Vera. Come, child. We have much to discuss and very little time. Vera glanced at Kale, who looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't without undermining whatever authority Tobias held. The mate bond thrummed with his frustration and concern. Be careful, he sent down the bond. Always am, she replied, trying for levity and failing. Tobias led her through the headquarters to a room she'd never seen, a library, ancient and smelling of old paper and older magic. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling, some so old their spines had crumbled to dust. He gestured for her to sit in a worn leather chair, then settled into one across from her with a sigh that spoke of bone-deep exhaustion. You look like her, he said quietly. Your mother. Elara Moonshadow. She had that same stubborn set to her jaw, the same storm-gray eyes. Vera's breath caught. You knew my mother? I knew your entire pack, child. I was there the night they died. His ancient eyes filled with a grief that time hadn't dulled. I was there, and I failed to save them. I don't understand. Vera leaned forward, desperation making her bold. Who are you? Why didn't you help? I'm what wolves become when they refuse to die, a keeper of histories, a witness to atrocities. Tobias pulled a leather journal from his coat, its pages yellowed with age. Your mother came to me 3 weeks before the massacre. She knew something was wrong, felt it in her bones. She asked me to record the truth, no matter what happened. So I did. He opened the journal, and Vera saw her mother's face staring up at her from a faded photograph. Young, beautiful, holding 2 infants in her arms. You have a twin brother, Tobias said gently. A boy named Elias. When your pack was attacked, your mother managed to hide both of you in that cellar. But she knew the hunters would find you eventually. So she made a choice that no mother should ever have to make. Vera's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the photograph. What choice? She used ancient magic, blood magic, the kind that costs pieces of your soul, to split her protection between her children. She bound your wolf, made you invisible to detection, and sent you into the world to hide. But Elias. Tobias's voice cracked. She bound him differently. Made him stronger, gave him alpha potential, and left subtle markers that would lead the hunters straight to him. She sacrificed him, Vera whispered, horror and understanding crashing over her in waves. She knew they'd find one of us, so she made sure they found him instead of me. She gave you both chances to survive, in different ways. You, by hiding. Him, by being too valuable to kill. Tobias turned the page, revealing documents stamped with council seals. The experiments weren't random, child. They were looking for specific bloodlines, descendants of the original alphas, wolves with the potential for extraordinary power. Your mother was the Moonshadow Alpha's daughter. Her blood, and yours, carries something the council has spent centuries trying to recreate. What? Vera could barely breathe around the implications. The ability to control the shift itself. True alphas could shift without the moon, could force others to change or prevent them from changing. That power has been diluted over generations, lost to interbreeding and time. But in pure bloodlines like Moonshadow. He met her eyes. You're not just a survivor, Vera. You're a weapon they spent decades trying to forge. And your brother, Elias, he's the result of their success. The room spun. Vera gripped the arms of her chair, trying to process information that rewrote her entire existence. The rogue wolf, she said slowly. The one attacking territories. That's him. That's Elias. Yes and no. Tobias closed the journal carefully. It's his body, his wolf. But his mind is no longer his own. The council bound him with compulsion magic, turned him into a tool for eliminating threats and maintaining control. He's been their weapon for 15 years, killing on command, unable to break free. How do you know all this? Because I've been watching, child. Documenting. Building a case against the council that would expose their crimes. But I'm old, and my time is running out. I needed someone who could carry this fight forward. His gnarled hand reached out, covering hers. I've been waiting for you to be ready. And now, ready or not, the time has come. Vera's mind raced through implications and connections. The attacks on my students. That was Elias too. But why? What threat could teenagers possibly pose to the council? None. But you do. Tobias leaned back, exhaustion clear in every line of his face. The attacks were designed to flush you out, force you into the open where the council could capture you. Someone told them you were in Silvercrest territory. Someone who knew what you were and wanted you neutralized before you could uncover the truth about Moonshadow. Sienna. The name tasted like poison. Her father funded the experiments. She threatened me, told me to leave town or she'd expose me to the council. But you didn't leave. You stayed, started investigating with young Kale. Got too close to secrets that powerful people want buried. Tobias struggled to his feet, moving to a hidden panel in the wall. Which is why you need to see this before the council drags you away. Before Sienna's machinations succeed. Before Elias is sent to kill you for real. The panel swung open, revealing a safe. Tobias worked the combination with shaking hands, pulling out a stack of files that looked like they'd survived a fire, edges charred, pages water-stained, but contents still legible. The original investigation documents from the Moonshadow massacre, he said, laying them on the table between them. The ones the council sealed. And these, he pulled out photographs that made Vera's stomach turn. Prove who was really there that night. The images showed wolves in mid-shift, caught by what looked like security cameras. But they wore tactical gear marked with council insignia. And in the background of one shot, partially obscured but unmistakable, was a young man who looked exactly like the portrait of Kale's father that hung in the headquarters main hall. No, Vera breathed. Kale's father was there? He participated in the massacre? He was sent there as muscle, yes. Council orders, before he became Alpha. Tobias's voice was heavy with sorrow. But when he saw what they were really doing, the experiments on children, the blood magic, the complete annihilation of an innocent pack, he tried to stop it. Tried to save lives, tried to document evidence that could expose the conspiracy. He pulled out the final photograph, and Vera's breath caught. It showed Kale's father holding 2 infants, running through burning wreckage. The image was date-stamped the night of the massacre. He saved you and your brother from the flames, Tobias said softly. Got you to your mother's hiding spot before the hunters found her. Then he spent the next 10 years trying to prove Silvercrest wasn't responsible, gathering evidence, building a case against the council members who'd ordered the attack. What happened to him? The council couldn't let him expose their crimes. So they killed him, made it look like a heart attack, and sealed every document he'd gathered. Tobias met her eyes. Kale doesn't know. His father never told him the full truth, trying to protect him from council retaliation. He died believing his son would live in ignorance, safe from the same fate. Vera thought of Kale, his obsession with clearing his father's name, his conviction that there was more to the Moonshadow story. He'd been right, but the truth was so much worse than he'd imagined. I have to tell him, she said, already standing. He deserves to know. You'll do no such thing. Not yet. Tobias grabbed her arm with surprising strength. Right now, you need to focus on survival. The council has you trapped. In 45 minutes, they'll demand that blood test, and when they get it, they'll know exactly what you are. They'll take you, probably kill you to eliminate any threat to their secrets. Then what do I do? You run. He pressed the files into her hands. Take these. Hide them. And when the moment comes, and it will come, you use them to expose everything. The experiments, the massacre, the council's corruption. All of it. They'll never let me just walk out of here. No. But Cale will. Tobias moved to the door, listening. The mate bond between you, I felt it the moment I entered that conference room. It's rare, true, and absolutely undeniable. He'll risk everything to keep you safe, even his position as Alpha. I can't ask him to do that. You won't have to ask. It's already done. Tobias opened the door, glancing back with sad wisdom in his ancient eyes. Your mother sacrificed herself for you. Cale's father sacrificed himself for the truth. Now it's your turn, child. Will you hide and survive? Or will you stand and fight? Before Vera could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the headquarters. Tobias's expression went grim. It started. What started? The endgame. They rushed back toward the conference room, but Marcus intercepted them in the hallway. Marcus, who suddenly looked different somehow, his usually calm demeanor fractured, his eyes wild with something that looked like recognition and terror combined. Vera. He grabbed her shoulders, and she felt something spark between them, not the mate bond she shared with Cale, but something older, deeper. Blood calling to blood. You need to run. Right now. Elias is here. The name hit her like a physical blow. How do you know that name? Marcus's hands were shaking where they gripped her. Because it's mine. Was mine. Before they bound me, before they made me forget, before they stationed me at your school to watch you without knowing why. His voice cracked. Gods, Vera. I'm your brother. The world stopped spinning. Marcus, quiet, kind Marcus who'd been the guidance counselor at her school for 5 years, who'd always seemed to take a special interest in her welfare, who she'd trusted implicitly, was Elias. Was her twin. The weapon the council had forged from her brother's stolen childhood. No, she whispered. You're human. I'm whatever they made me. His face twisted with anguish. The binding is breaking. Has been breaking since you shifted for the first time 2 days ago. Our wolves recognize each other, and the magic can't hold against blood bonds. But Vera, they know. The council knows I'm compromised. They've activated the kill command. What does that mean? It means I'm about to shift whether I want to or not. It means I'm going to try to kill you, and I won't be able to stop myself. Tears streamed down his face. You have to run. Please. Before I lose control completely. As if summoned by his words, Marcus's body convulsed. Vera watched in horror as his bones began to shift, his wolf rising with the inexorable force of council magic overriding free will. Vera, go. Tobias shoved her toward a side exit. I'll hold him off as long as I can. But he didn't get to finish. Marcus's shift completed in seconds, faster than any wolf Vera had ever seen, smooth as water, resulting in a massive gray and black wolf that dwarfed normal shifters. This was what the council had created. An alpha weapon with her brother's face and no control over his own actions. The wolf that was Marcus, that was Elias, fixed its gold eyes on Vera and snarled. Then Cale was there, his own shift instantaneous, placing himself between Vera and the threat. The two alphas faced each other in the narrow hallway, the air crackling with competing dominance. Run, Cale sent down the mate bond, his mental voice strained. I'll hold him. Just run. But Vera couldn't. Couldn't leave Cale to fight her brother alone. Couldn't abandon the twin she'd just discovered existed. Couldn't keep running when everyone she'd ever loved had sacrificed themselves for her survival. Her mother's words echoed across 15 years. Promise me you'll survive, little wolf. Promise me this won't be for nothing. But surviving wasn't enough anymore. Not when the cost was everyone else's destruction. Vera felt her own wolf rising for the first time without suppressants forcing it down. Felt the power in her blood, the alpha legacy her mother had hidden, the strength the council had tried to steal. She was small, stunted by years of abuse, but she was also Moonshadow. She was her mother's daughter. And she was done hiding. The shift took her cleanly, almost gently, and she stepped forward to stand beside Kale. 2 alphas against 1, but the one was council-made and magic-bound, and the fight was far from fair. Marcus, Elias, attacked. The battle that followed was brutal and heartbreaking. Vera fought her own brother while trying not to hurt him, trying to reach whatever consciousness might still exist beneath the compulsion. Kale fought with controlled fury, protecting his mate while avoiding a killing blow that would destroy her newly found family. Council enforcers poured into the hallway. Coldwater's voice rang out, commanding them to capture both rogues, because that's what Vera and Marcus had become in council eyes. Threats to be neutralized. Enough. Tobias's voice boomed with power that shook the walls, ancient magic rising to enforce his command. The wolves all froze, even Marcus, the compulsion struggling against an authority that predated the council itself. This ends now. He moved between the combatants, one hand on Marcus's massive head, the other reaching toward Vera. The binding can be broken, but not by force. It requires blood, will, and sacrifice. It requires. Marcus's wolf convulsed, the council magic fighting against Tobias's intervention. Blood poured from his nose, his eyes, as the competing commands tried to tear him apart from the inside. It requires his sister's choice, Tobias finished, meeting Vera's eyes. Your blood freely given can break the binding. But the magic will backlash. The council will know exactly where you are and what you've done. They'll come for you with everything they have. Do it, Vera said without hesitation, shifting back to human form. Tell me what to do. Vera, no, Kale grabbed her arm, his own shift reversing. You'll be exposing yourself completely. There'll be no hiding, no running. The council will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Then let them come. She pulled free, moving to where Marcus writhed in agony on the floor. I'm tired of hiding. Tired of letting other people pay for my survival. If my blood can free him, he can have it. She bit down on her palm, hard enough to draw blood, and pressed it to Marcus's muzzle. The effect was instantaneous, a flash of light so bright everyone had to look away, a wave of power that blew out windows and shorted electrical systems throughout the building. When Vera could see again, Marcus lay on the floor in human form, gasping for breath but with clear, aware eyes. Eyes that focused on her with recognition and anguish and relief all mixed together. Vera, he croaked. Little sister. I remember. Gods, I remember everything. She collapsed beside him, pulling him into a hug 15 years overdue. I've got you. We've got each other now. But their reunion was short-lived. Coldwater stood in the doorway, her mercury eyes cold with calculation and something that might have been respect. Well, she said softly. This changes everything. Behind her, more council wolves materialized. Not just enforcers this time, but high-ranking members, drawn by the massive magical discharge. And in the back, smiling with vicious satisfaction, was Sienna Blackwood. The trap had been sprung, but not the one Vera had expected. Vera Moonshadow, Coldwater said formally. Also known as Vera Thorn. You stand accused of being a rogue wolf in violation of territorial law, of assault on human civilians, and now of using forbidden blood magic to break council bindings. How do you plead? Vera stood slowly, Marcus leaning on her for support, Kale moving to her other side. They faced the council together, 2 broken survivors and an alpha who'd chosen his mate over pack politics. I plead, Vera said clearly, that the council is corrupt, that you murdered my pack to hide illegal experiments, and that I have evidence to prove it." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Coldwater smiled, a real smile this time, sharp and dangerous and approving. "Finally," she said. "Someone brave enough or foolish enough to make the accusation directly. Very well, Vera Moonshadow. Let's see this evidence you claim to have." Vera's heart hammered as she produced the files Tobias had given her. This was it. The moment of truth. Either the council would be exposed, or they'd all die trying. But as Coldwater began reading, her expression shifting from skepticism to shock to carefully controlled rage, Vera realized something: not all council members were corrupt. Some, like Coldwater, genuinely sought justice. The question was whether justice would be enough to overcome centuries of institutional power and those willing to kill to protect their secrets. "These are damning," Coldwater said quietly, looking up from the files. "If authentic. But accusing sitting council members of genocide and illegal experimentation, you understand what you're starting?" "A war," Cale said firmly, his hand finding Vera's. "And we'll fight it if we have to." "So will I," Marcus rasped, still weak but determined. "They stole 15 years of my life. Made me a weapon. I want them to pay." "As do I," Tobias added. "I've been gathering evidence for decades, waiting for someone strong enough to be the face of this fight. These children are that strength." Coldwater looked between them all: a rogue wolf, a compromised alpha, a broken weapon, and an ancient keeper of secrets. Against them stood half the council, unlimited resources, and centuries of precedent. The odds were impossible. "Well then," Coldwater said, closing the files with decisive finality. "It seems we have work to do." But first, she turned to Sienna, who'd gone pale beneath her perfect makeup. "Ms. Blackwood. We need to discuss your father's involvement in these allegations. And the interesting timing of your arrival in Silvercrest territory right before a series of council-ordered attacks." Sienna's mask finally cracked, revealing the calculating predator beneath. "You're making a mistake, Magistrate. My father has powerful allies." "Had," Coldwater corrected coldly. Past tense. "Because this evidence suggests he's a traitor to everything the council stands for. And if you've been helping him..." She gestured to the enforcers. "Detain her. Gently, but thoroughly. Until we can verify her involvement." As they led a protesting Sienna away, Coldwater turned back to Vera. "You've started something that can't be stopped. I hope you're ready for what comes next." "I'm not," Vera admitted. "But I'll do it anyway. Because that's what her mother had died for. What Cale's father had died for. What Marcus had survived for. Not just survival. Justice. And maybe, just maybe, a future where wolves like her didn't have to hide what they were." If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The blood moon rose 3 days later, painting the sky the color of fresh wounds. Vera stood at the window of Cale's private quarters, her prison having been upgraded to protective custody after Coldwater's intervention, and watched the crimson light spill across Silvercrest territory. Every wolf in the compound was restless, their magic pulling toward the surface with the moon's call. Even humans would feel it tonight, that primal unease that made them lock their doors and avoid the woods. For wolves, the blood moon was power and madness in equal measure. Old magic rising, instincts overwhelming reason, the beast inside demanding recognition. For Vera, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to fall. "You should eat something." Marcus appeared in the doorway, carrying a tray that neither of them believed she'd touch. 3 days since the binding had broken, and he still looked like a man learning to inhabit his own skin again. Thinner than he should be, shadows under his eyes, but aware in a way he hadn't been for 15 years. Her brother. The twin she'd mourned without knowing existed. "Not hungry," she said, though her stomach was a knot of anxiety rather than appetite. "Neither am I." He set the tray down anyway, moving to stand beside her at the window. Tomorrow, the full council convenes. Coldwater's investigation has bought us time, but not enough. They're calling for our immediate execution to prevent further destabilization of pack hierarchy. How very polite of them. Vera's laugh was bitter. Execute the survivors to hide their crimes. Very council. Kale's calling for an alpha trial, Marcus said quietly. Did he tell you? Her hands clenched on the windowsill. He mentioned it. I told him absolutely not. And he's ignoring you, because he's an alpha and an idiot and he loves you. Marcus's smile was sad. Reminds me of father. Our father, I mean. The memories are still fractured. But I remember him. Remember mother hiding us, remember someone pulling me from the flames. I think it was Kale's father. The man who saved us both. Vera turned to study her brother properly. They didn't look identical, the years had carved different paths across their faces. But they had the same storm-gray eyes, the same stubborn jaw, the same moonshadow blood running through their veins. Do you remember the experiments? She asked softly. His expression went distant, haunted. Pieces. Pain. Needles and cages and being told I was special, important, a weapon for the greater good. They broke something in me, Vera. Made my wolf stronger but wrong. I can feel it even now, this power that doesn't quite fit, that wants to tear free and destroy everything. The council's super soldier. She said it without judgment. They were both products of the same horror, just molded differently. Failed super soldier, Marcus corrected. Whatever they wanted me to be, I wasn't it. Not quite controllable enough, not quite stable enough. So they bound me with compulsion magic and planted me where I could watch you without knowing why. A backup plan in case they needed leverage. And now we're both loose, and the council is terrified. Vera looked back at the blood moon, feeling its pull in her bones. Tomorrow they'll try to fix their mistake permanently. Unless Kale wins the trial. He won't. The words tasted like ash, but she forced them out. The council will stack the deck, send their strongest alpha against him, make sure he fails. And then we'll both die, and this will all have been for nothing. So we run, Marcus suggested without conviction. Tonight, while the blood moon makes everyone unstable. We could disappear, start new lives somewhere the council can't reach. They both knew it was impossible. The council's reach was infinite, and running would doom everyone who tried to help them. Kale, Tobias, even Coldwater with her fragile attempt at justice. I'm tired of running, Vera whispered. Tired of hiding. Tired of letting other people fight my battles. Then what do you want to do? She met her brother's eyes, seeing her own desperate determination reflected back. I want to fight. I want to stand in front of the council and make them see what they created. I want them to be afraid of us the way we've been afraid of them. You sound like mother, Marcus said softly. She was fierce too. An alpha's daughter who never got to claim her birthright because the council feared strong bloodlines. She would have loved seeing you like this. Like what? Trapped and desperate? Like a wolf who's finally stopped apologizing for having teeth. Before Vera could respond, Kale entered without knocking, Alpha's privilege in his own territory. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, his jaw dark with stubble, his eyes carrying that edge of controlled violence that meant his wolf was close to the surface. The mate bond flared between them, fierce and demanding. Under the blood moon's influence, it was almost painful in its intensity. We need to talk, he said, his gaze fixed on Vera. Privately. Marcus took the hint, squeezing Vera's shoulder as he passed. Remember what I said. Teeth. When they were alone, Kale moved to her like gravity pulling him, his hands framing her face with a gentleness that contradicted the predatory tension in his body. Tell me not to do this, he said roughly. Tell me to let the council take you, to sacrifice you for pack stability and political convenience. Tell me to choose duty over everything else. Would you listen if I did? No. But I need to hear you say it anyway. Vera reached up, covering his hands with hers. Don't do this. Don't risk your pack, your position, everything you've built for someone you barely know. Let me go, Chaol. Let me face this alone. Can't. The word was half growl. You're my mate, Vera. My wolf claimed you the moment we touched. Under the blood moon, that bond is law older than the council, stronger than their politics. I couldn't abandon you if I tried. You'll die, she said desperately. They'll send someone impossible to beat, and you'll die, and I'll have to live with knowing I cost you everything. Or I'll win. He pulled her closer, until their foreheads touched, until she could feel his breath against her lips. I'll win because I'm fighting for something they can't understand. Not for power or politics or glory. For you. For us. For the chance to build something better than what came before. That's not how the world works. Then we'll change how the world works. The kiss was inevitable, desperate and fierce and flavored with the certainty that tomorrow might steal any chance for more. Vera let herself fall into it, into him, the mate bonds singing between them as the blood moon's power amplified every sensation. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Chaol's eyes had gone completely wolf. Tomorrow, he said roughly, when the trial begins, I need you to promise me something. What? If I fall, if the council's champion defeats me, run. Take Marcus, take the evidence, and disappear. Don't let my death be meaningless. Chaol. Promise me, Vera. I can face anything knowing you'll survive. I can't face losing you because you were too stubborn to run when you had the chance. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell him she'd die before abandoning him. But she saw the desperation in his eyes, the alpha who needed this one certainty to face the impossible. I promise, she lied. Because when tomorrow came, she had no intention of running. Not anymore. The council arrived at dawn, though the blood moon still hung heavy in the sky, refusing to yield to daylight. Unnatural, Tobias called it. A sign that old magic was waking, responding to the blood and power being spilled on sacred ground. They assembled in the central square of Silvercrest territory. A space that could hold hundreds, now ringed with wolves from a dozen packs. Word had spread impossibly fast. An alpha challenging council authority, calling for trial by combat, invoking laws that hadn't been used in centuries. Everyone wanted to witness it. Everyone wanted to see who would fall. Vera stood with Marcus in the section reserved for the accused, surrounded by council enforcers who watched them with the intensity of wolves guarding wounded prey. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, whispers spreading through the crowd. That's her. The Moonshadow survivor. Heard she's a rogue who seduced the alpha. Heard she's dangerous. Council wants her executed. Heard she's the reason we're all here, risking war. Let them whisper. Let them judge. Soon enough, they'd see the truth. Coldwater stood on a raised platform, her silver hair gleaming in the eerie dual light of moon and sun. This tribunal is convened under ancient law, she announced, her voice magically amplified to reach every corner of the square. Alpha Chaol Silvercrest has challenged council authority, claiming that the accused, Vera Moonshadow and Elias Moonshadow, were unjustly targeted for execution without proper investigation. He invokes the right of trial by combat, where victory determines truth. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Invoking trial by combat meant Chaol believed in Vera's innocence with such conviction that he'd stake his life on it. The council accepts this challenge, Coldwater continued. But know this, Alpha Silvercrest, if you fall, your pack will be absorbed, your territory redistributed, and the accused will face immediate execution. There will be no appeal, no mercy, no second chances. Do you accept these terms? Chaol stood opposite Vera, magnificent in his certainty, his alpha power rolling off him in waves. I accept. Then choose your champion, or fight yourself. I fight myself, Chaol said without hesitation. This is my challenge, my responsibility. I won't ask another to bear it. Very well. Coldwater's expression was carefully neutral, but Vera caught a flicker of concern in those mercury eyes. The council names its champion, Alpha Dominic Ironhide of the Northern Territories. The wolf who stepped forward made Vera's blood run cold. He was massive, easily 7 feet tall in human form, built like violence-made flesh. Scars covered his visible skin, testaments to decades of battle survived. His eyes were black as midnight, holding no mercy, no doubt. This was a wolf who'd killed hundreds in council service, who'd earned his reputation crushing rebellions and eliminating threats. This was a wolf designed to make examples of challengers. Marcus's hand found Vera's, squeezing tight. "Kale can't beat him," he whispered. "Ironhide is legendary. Undefeated in 40 years of combat. The council sent him to make sure there's no chance of failure." "I know," Vera breathed, watching Kale face down certain death without flinching. Coldwater explained the rules: combat until surrender, death, or incapacitation. No outside interference, no weapons, pure wolf against wolf. The victor's truth would be accepted as law. "Begin," she commanded, stepping back. Ironhide shifted first, a transformation that was instant and brutal, resulting in a wolf the size of a small bear. Black as shadow, muscles rippling beneath thick fur, teeth that could crush bone. Kale's shift was just as fast but more controlled, his wolf slightly smaller but radiating alpha dominance that made wolves in the crowd whimper and submit. Silver-gray fur, storm-colored eyes, every line of him screaming defiance. They circled each other while the crowd held its collective breath. Then Ironhide attacked. The fight was brutal from the first moment. Ironhide fought with the precision of a trained killer, targeting joints and arteries with surgical efficiency. Kale fought with the desperation of a wolf protecting his mate, all offense and aggression, refusing to yield ground. Blood spattered the packed earth. Vera tasted copper in the air, felt each impact like a blow to her own body through the mate bond. She watched Kale take hit after hit, his movements slowing, his wolf strength flagging. He was losing. "Vera." Marcus's voice was urgent. "You have to do something. The mate bond, under the blood moon, it's strong enough. You could lend him strength, help him fight. The council would see it as interference. They'd declare him forfeit. He's going to die anyway." Marcus gripped her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "Listen to me. You're not just any wolf. You're Moonshadow Alpha bloodline. True Alpha potential. If you shift, if you let that power out, I'll prove the council was right to fear us," Vera finished. "They'll hunt down every survivor, every descendant. They'll finish what they started 15 years ago. Or you'll prove you're strong enough that they can't." Her brother's eyes blazed with desperate conviction. "Mother made us invisible and powerful for a reason. So that when the moment came, we could fight back and win. This is that moment, Vera. This is what all the sacrifice was for." In the square, Ironhide's jaws closed around Kale's throat. Not crushing, not yet. A warning. A promise. Submit or die. Kale's wolf snarled defiance, even bleeding and beaten. The mate bond flared with his determination, his love, his absolute refusal to let them take her without a fight. And Vera felt something in her chest crack open, that wall she'd built 18 years ago, the cage she'd locked her wolf behind, the fear that had defined every moment of her existence. She stepped forward, breaking through the enforcers' line like they were mist. Coldwater shouted something, the crowd erupted, but Vera heard nothing over the roar of her own blood. "Enough," she said, and her voice carried impossible authority. "This isn't his fight alone. It's mine." She felt her wolf rising, not the stunted, broken creature that had emerged 3 days ago, but something vast and ancient that had been sleeping in her bloodline for generations. The suppressants were gone. The fear was gone. All that remained was power and purpose. Vera shifted. The transformation was unlike anything she'd experienced before. Clean and quick and right, her body remembering what it was always meant to be. She grew, not Ironhide's massive size but something leaner, faster, built for precision rather than brute force. Her fur was storm gray touched with silver, marking her as Moonshadow royalty. And her eyes burned with alpha power that made wolves in the crowd drop to their knees in instinctive submission. This was what the council had feared. What they'd tried to destroy. A true alpha, equal in power to any male, carrying a bloodline that predated their authority. Ironhide released Kale, backing away from Vera with something that might have been respect or might have been fear. The massive black wolf tilted his head, assessing this new threat. Then Sienna's voice cut through the shocked silence, sharp with triumph. She's shifting. The rogue is interfering with trial by combat. Coldwater, declare Kale forfeit, the council wins. But Coldwater's expression had gone thoughtful, calculating. The trial was for Vera Moonshadow's innocence. I see no reason why she shouldn't defend herself. That's not protocol. Sienna pushed through the crowd, her mask of elegance completely shattered. This is exactly why they need to die. She's dangerous, unstable, an alpha who shouldn't exist. Why? Vera's voice emerged as a growl that nonetheless formed words. Because I'm female? Because I'm Moonshadow? Because your father spent 15 years trying to create what I was born with? The accusation hung in the air, and Vera saw the moment Sienna realized her mistake. Saw the calculation in those amber eyes as she decided to burn everything down rather than face exposure. Fine, Sienna said coldly. You want truth? Here's truth, the council was right to destroy Moonshadow. Your pack was breeding true alphas in secret, planning to overthrow pack hierarchy and install themselves as rulers. My father did what was necessary to preserve order. By killing children? Vera took a step forward, her alpha power making Sienna flinch despite herself. By experimenting on survivors? By creating weapons like my brother? By preventing wolves like you from destroying everything we've built. Sienna's own shift started, elegant white fur, ice blue eyes, every inch of her screaming privilege and power. The experiments were meant to create controllable alphas, wolves we could direct, wolves who would serve rather than rule. Your brother was supposed to be the first. Perfect. Obedient. Strong. He was supposed to be dead, Marcus said, stepping forward. All of us were. But we survived, and now your father's crimes are exposed, and you're desperate to silence us before the truth spreads. Desperate? Sienna laughed, high and brittle. No. Prepared. The council promised me if I helped eliminate you, they'd give me the resources to perfect the process. To create an army of super soldiers, wolves bound to my will. I'd rule not just Nightshade but every pack in the region. I'd be unstoppable. The admission sent shockwaves through the crowd. Even Ironhide had backed away, clearly not signed up for conspiracy and treason. You're insane, Kale said, having shifted back to human form, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. You'd enslave our own kind for power? I'd save our kind from chaos. Sienna's control was fracturing. True alphas like her, she gestured at Vera, they're unpredictable, uncontrollable. They threaten the hierarchy that keeps us stable. Better one strong leader with loyal soldiers than dozens of alphas fighting for dominance. That's not strength, Vera said quietly. That's tyranny. Call it what you want. It's the future. Sienna's eyes flicked to the council members in the crowd. Kill them. All of them. Now. Before this gets any worse. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a dozen council enforcers moved forward, their wolves rising, prepared to execute without trial. But they'd forgotten something crucial. They were in Silvercrest territory, surrounded by Kale's wolves, under a blood moon that amplified pack bonds and loyalty. And Kale was still alpha, still standing, still commanding absolute devotion from every wolf who called this place home. No, he said simply, and the word carried alpha compulsion that stopped the enforcers in their tracks. This is my territory. My pack. And you will not harm my mate or her brother. Not while I live. Silvercrest wolves flooded the square, surrounding the council enforcers, cutting off escape. The power dynamic shifted in an instant, from trial to standoff, from judgment to revolution. Coldwater held up her hand, her voice cutting through the rising chaos. Enough. This tribunal has gone far enough off the rails. Sienna Blackwood, you stand accused of conspiracy, treason, and admitting to crimes that violate every law the council was founded to uphold. You're under arrest pending investigation. You can't, Sienna started, but enforcers, the ones loyal to law rather than corruption, moved to restrain her. She fought. Of course she fought. The battle that erupted was chaos incarnate. Sienna supporters clashing with Coldwater's loyalists, pack wolves defending their territory, and in the center of it all, three true alphas, Kale, Vera, and the monster that Ironhide represented. Except Ironhide wasn't fighting. The massive black wolf sat back on his haunches, watching with those midnight eyes, clearly deciding that this internal council conflict wasn't his problem. Smart wolf. Vera found herself fighting beside Kale, their movements synchronized through the mate bond, two halves of a whole. She was stronger than she'd ever imagined, faster, her alpha power amplified by the blood moon until she felt invincible. But they were still outnumbered. Still facing wolves with centuries of combat experience. Still fighting a losing battle against impossible odds. That's when Marcus started screaming. Vera spun to see her brother collapse, his body convulsing, magic erupting from his skin in waves of raw power. The council binding, the one they'd broken 3 days ago, wasn't as gone as they'd thought. It was fracturing completely, and taking Marcus with it. No. Vera lunged toward him, but Kale held her back. The magic's unstable, he said urgently. If you touch him right now, it could kill you both. I don't care. That's my brother. Marcus's eyes opened, glowing gold, his voice coming from somewhere distant. Vera. Kale. Listen to me. The binding was tied to council authority, their power structure. To break it completely, to free every wolf they've ever enslaved with compulsion magic, someone has to sever the connection at its source. What does that mean? Vera demanded. It means I have to let the magic consume me. Use it as a conduit to burn out every binding the council ever created. His smile was heartbreaking. It means I finally get to be useful. Marcus, no. This is my choice. Power was building around him, visible now as golden light that hurt to look at. You got 18 years of freedom. Let me have this. Let me matter. You've always mattered, Vera choked out. You're my brother. I just found you, I can't lose you. You're not losing me. I'm just changing. Becoming something else. Marcus's form was already starting to blur, caught between wolf and human and something that was neither. The old stories call it a wanderer. A wolf without pack who walks between worlds. I'll still exist, Vera. Just different. The magic peaked, a wave of golden power that exploded outward in every direction. Vera felt it wash over her, through her, and in its wake, every wolf who'd ever been bound by council compulsion gasped and fell to their knees as the chains shattered. Free. All of them, instantly free. But Marcus. Marcus was gone. Not dead, not exactly. But transformed into something that looked like starlight and shadow, a form that was barely there, already fading into the between spaces of reality. I'll find you again, he whispered, his voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere. When you need me. When the fight gets too hard. I'll be there. I promise. Then he was gone completely, leaving Vera staring at empty space where her brother had stood, something inside her chest cracking wide open. The square had gone silent. Every wolf, council and pack alike, felt what had just happened. The breaking of ancient magic, the severing of compulsion bonds that had enslaved hundreds over the decades. Freedom bought with Marcus's sacrifice. Sienna stood frozen, her white wolf form diminished, the supporters she'd controlled through council magic no longer under her influence. She was alone, exposed, defeated. Coldwater surveyed the aftermath with grim satisfaction. Sienna Blackwood, you're remanded to council custody pending trial for treason. And as for the corruption allegations, she turned to Vera, something like respect in her mercury eyes. I believe we have much to discuss about reforming council practices. Starting with full transparency about the Moonshadow massacre and ending with significant changes to pack law. Changes like recognizing female alphas? Vera asked, her voice rough with unshed tears. That would be a good start. Coldwater extended her hand. Your brother just freed more wolves than you know. The council can't pretend that didn't happen. We have to acknowledge our failures and do better. Will you help us? Vera looked at Kale, who nodded, supporting whatever choice she made. Then at the space where Marcus had disappeared, feeling the certainty that he was still out there, still fighting in his own way. Yes, she said finally, taking Coldwater's hand. But on my terms. No more hiding. No more pretending true alphas don't exist. No more treating female wolves as lesser. And absolutely no more experiments on bloodlines without consent. Agreed. It wasn't victory. Not completely. The council still existed, still held power, still had members who'd need rooting out and replacing. But it was a start, a crack in the foundation that could widen into real change. Kale's hand found Vera's, the mate bonds settling between them with new certainty. What now? He asked quietly. Vera looked around at the gathered wolves, her people now, whether she'd wanted that responsibility or not. Silvercrest and Moonshadow merged through her connection to Kale. Two bloodlines that history had pitted against each other, united by truth and trauma and love. Now, she said, we rebuild. We expose the rest of the council's corruption, we find other survivors like us, and we make sure no pack ever suffers what Moonshadow did. Ambitious. I'm a true alpha. She smiled, fierce and certain despite the grief still raw in her chest. Ambition comes with the territory. They stood together as the blood moon finally began to fade, giving way to ordinary daylight. Around them, wolves who'd been enemies moments before started tentatively talking, the shock of mass unbinding making temporary allies of everyone. Tobias appeared at Vera's elbow, ancient and knowing as ever. Your mother would be proud, he said softly. Both of what you've become and what you're going to do next. Is Marcus really gone? Vera asked, needing confirmation from someone who understood old magic. Gone from this world, yes. But the Wanderer paths, they're not death, child. They're transformation. He'll return when the need is greatest. And until then, he walks worlds you can't imagine, doing work that needs doing. It wasn't comfort, exactly. But it was hope, which was more than she'd had an hour ago. Come on, Kale said, gently guiding her away from the dissipating crowd. You're exhausted, you're grieving, and you need rest before we start fixing centuries of council corruption. I'm fine. You're not. His arms wrapped around her, steady and sure. But you will be. We both will be. Together. Vera let herself lean into him, let the mate bond wrap around her like armor and comfort combined. She'd lost her brother, but gained a mate. Lost her anonymity, but gained purpose. Lost her innocence, but gained power. The Moonshadow name no longer meant victim. It meant survivor. Fighter. True alpha. And the council, what remained of it after Coldwater's promised reforms, would learn to respect that, or face wolves who'd stopped apologizing for having teeth. As they walked away from the square, Vera felt something brush against her consciousness, Marcus's presence, distant but distinct, carrying a message. Stay fierce, little sister. The real fight is just beginning. She smiled through her tears, sending back her own promise. Always. We both will. Because that's what Moonshadow wolves did. They survived. They fought. They protected each other across worlds and realities and impossible odds. And they never, ever stayed hidden again. The blood moon had risen and fallen, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. And Vera Moonshadow, true alpha, mate, survivor, was ready to face whatever came next. With Kale beside her, her brother's memory guiding her, and her mother's legacy finally honored, she'd tear down every corrupt institution that had tried to destroy her. One council stronghold at a time. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. But for the first time in 18 years, Vera was fighting back. And she had no intention of losing. End of Blood Moon Rising. But Marcus's story continues in the shadows, and the council's corruption runs deeper than anyone knows. The Wanderer watches. Waits. And when the time comes, he'll return to finish what his sister started. Because some bonds, blood, pact, sacrifice, transcend even magic. And the Moonshadow legacy refuses to die. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.